Welcome to Literary Deep Dives and Discussions with me, A.L. Lieske, the author of the Unseen Operative series. I'm joined today with author Jeffrey A. Smith. For all the viewers, Jeffrey A. Smith is an indie author like myself, but he writes in the genre of fantasy, and particularly his book of interest for today is calledChthoma's Fated. I didn't butcher it that time. Before we dive into the book itself, I have read the book up to the 12th chapter. I wanted to finish it before this, but I got a little sidetracked because we've been doing the audiobook for my own books. I have read most of it. Before we jump into that, let's get to know you a little bit. So tell us about yourself and how you became an author.
So that's a really broad question. I always wanted to be a writer even when I was a kid. I think the first story I wrote was about dinosaurs with laser eyes. That was like in second, third grade. I got into fantasy through J.R.R. Tolkien, who seems to be everybody's entrance into the genre. And the big one for me was the Silmarillion, because after I read that, then I got into world building and just rolled from there. I then got into Dungeons and Dragons in grade school through high school, and that taught me how to think through characters and things like that. That's kind of the Reader's Digest version.
Awesome. I love that you brought up the Silmarillion. You are the first author that I've had on the podcast that I've actually mentioned that book specifically, and I think that's one of Tolkien's best, really.
I love that book so much. It's I don't really reread books very often, and that's one of them that I have reread.
I didn't get to read that until I was in my college years. I don't know why it took me so long. But when I did, I was so impressed by just the span of it. Like, The Lord of the Rings is great. Fabulous series. So is The Hobbit. But the Silmarillion is just packed with so much.
That's what really just kind of made me go like crazy with the whole idea, because I couldn't stop thinking of creating my own worlds after reading that book and thinking through history and all that, because I love history too. So it just kind of was a natural fit for me.
This book specifically, Cthoma, what inspired it?
I was unemployed, looking for a job. And at that point, I would get up in the morning, I'd go on the job boards and I would look for work. And then once I got to a point where it's like, okay, I've applied for everything I can right now, then I'd switch into writer's mode and I'd start working on whatever I was working on at the time. The idea, like the blurb came to mind, and I wrote it down. And that sat around for years. And then 5-6 years ago, I finally was like, I should write that book.
So did you just sit down and it just poured out, or did you have to plot further past that point?
I am not a plotter, so I'm a discovery writer. Basically, my process is I know where I'm starting. If I get an idea, I'll set that project aside and I'll start working on just the opening couple of chapters of the idea that I have. And that's what happened with this one, because I was working on something else. I just kind of wrote 4 or 5 chapters and I knew where the end point was. And then I just kind of set it aside, and then I picked it up later. But yeah, I knew where it was starting and I knew some of the things going along. And there's a huge spoiler in chapter 5, which I'm glad you've got to that point, which I won't talk about here specifically. That was the moment I knew I had to finish this book, because as soon as that happened, I was like, I've got to write this. I've got to write this now. And actually my initial idea was to undo that particular event like a couple of chapters later. And I actually wrote that chapter to undo what I had done, and totally lost interest in the story. And I went, okay, I think I know what my story has to be. So it changed the trajectory of it. I mean, there were certain scenes in my head that still were written in time, but like how he got to these different scenes that were the course he was going to be taking changed because of chapter 5.
I think I know what event you're talking about, and I did have questions about that, but if we gotta avoid that, I will try my best.
Okay. We can say like spoilers and then start
Yeah, and then
talking
people
about
can
it.
clock out. So your character, how do you pronounce his name?
It's changed in my head ever since I started writing it. I landed on Thraug Slagger, although I do want to say that is not his real name in the story. He has several different names throughout the stories. I liked it because that was a name that I came up with when I was like 14 or 15 and wrote it in a notebook. That character would have picked that name for himself about that same age. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to go with that name and then give him a different name later on and go from there.
I caught up on the hints throughout that his name wasn't his own name, that he had taken it from his grandfather, I believed, or something like that.
Yeah, he to hide his who he was.
What inspired him?
He just came out of me. I can't explain where my characters come from most of the time because they're just, it's really that blurb that I wrote, the whole idea that he was the chosen one and then he failed, and then what his life is like 19 years later. I mean, I just found that such a fascinating idea because, like, we've all read the chosen one trope. It's a great trope. I love that trope. But I really like the idea of how would you live with yourself if you knew that you failed? And then just kind of going down that road and kind of a redemption story, basically, of how he dealt with his failure and how he's going to redeem himself in the end. So the ways he tries to cover up what he did and how he failed, and that's when he got into all the drugs and alcohol and things, seemed right for him. And it also put him at a really low level when you meet him, so he can only go up, hopefully.
I found that to be such a unique arc to have for your main story. I mean, in my own story, I do slightly have that for side characters. And I agree with you that, the chosen one is a great thing to have. It's wonderful, but it is overused a little bit. So, I mean, for my own series, the main character is actually very much a side character. There's no chosen one. There's humans that keep butchering things, messing up, and they're just trying to make things get by and work. And she's definitely not the main key player if there is a key player, but she is overshadowed by a couple. Having that complete arc of you were the chosen one, you failed, you butchered this, and now everybody hates you for it. I have not seen that before at all. Absolutely unique. And for that alone, like, I would highly recommend this book to all readers. You kind of have this redemption arc coming up. What does redemption really mean for someone who was never able to fulfill the role that they were given? What are you exploring with that?
I'm really exploring how he processes it and how he has to face his past, face basically the people, and also face the person that defeated him in the end and process through that. And that I found just so fascinating about him. And I really wanted to spend time with that. And also the other character he plays off of a lot, which you've probably met at this point, is Jask. And having a person who was brutally hurt by what Thraug did, it just made it more interesting. And also, I mean, like I said, I didn't plan on chapter 5. And when I did do chapter 5, I came up with Jask. And like I said, he was only going to be there for a couple chapters. And then it was like, they need each other. These are two characters that need each other. They need to process the pain that they've been through. They need to process the mistakes that both of them have made, and also get over blaming each other or blaming themselves and doing what's right. And that's where I wanted to go with that, is have these two characters be the center point and go from there. Unfortunately, there was another character who was supposed to have a big arc in the story, just kind of became like a minor character because Jask walked in and kind of pushed that character aside.
These characters have minds of their own, I swear.
I know they do.
I do love the dynamics between Jask and Throg, just because there is that amount of anger and that need to find forgiveness, not just once, occasionally again and again as they learn more about each other. It's a very humanistic thing. It's very relevant, very relatable to the kind of circumstances we go through life. People make mistakes and they do impact others in horrendous ways, and you never know till you meet those people.
Yeah, that's what I found really interesting once I kind of came up with their dynamic and how they work off of or play off of each other.
Have you learned anything special for your own life from writing this book?
Forgiveness is important. You can't hold grudges. I mean, there are people that have hurt me over the years, and it's like, you know what? I don't know what their story was outside of way we interacted. It's better just to let that stuff go. Every once in a while, if I think about some of these people, it's always like, I could have done that better. I could have been a better person as opposed to, where I was a jerk to them. I could have done that better. Yeah, it definitely makes you think through the forgiveness aspect.
That's my favorite part of writing, especially when it comes to fiction, because there's always a little bit of a pause for us as authors, but hopefully also for our readers to look at their own lives and think, how is this relevant to me and what does this tell me about myself?
Yeah, it's a way to process certain things in your life at times, and that's always interesting to take something you're dealing with. I mean, in Shroud of Whispers, which was my second book, we had to put our dog to sleep, and I had a scene where somebody died in the book, and I took what I was feeling and put it right into that chapter. That was very therapeutic. And it was, oh no, it's not Shroud of Whispers. I'm sorry. It's Steadfast as Stone, the new book that's coming out in September. I'm getting them all confused. I got too many books in my head.
You're allowed to do that.
But yeah, it was a great way to process what I was feeling. Although I haven't read it in a while, I think I probably should read that chapter and kind of live through that again in a way.
I completely get that. I mean, even as you started talking about your author journey, unemployment, I was unemployed when I started writing The Fallacy Web, my second book, which is on pre-order now. And a lot of the emotions that I had during that time just absolutely poured into that book, but also things that I've experienced from like multiple friends committing suicide, learning how to start running, of all things. I've had interrogation scenes that I just pour all these frustrations in, or all this curiosity I have for these people that have been in my life, and it makes or breaks things sometimes.
It's
Yeah.
good to put it on the page.
Very therapeutic. And I do know a lot of authors that write memoirs, nonfiction, find a lot of sense and meaning in their lives as they do those things as well.
Yeah.
Your book, I love so much that it has this kind of symbolism or religious inversion to it, if you will. Throg is what they called the Messiah, the Savior. And so, me being a Christian, and honestly, most of what I do is read Christian theology and philosophy. So, I was just like geeking out over that. So, I was curious what inspired that aspect of it.
Well, I'm a Christian as well, so it's easy to pull that in. I would think in a world where you have these chosen ones, they would become almost religious symbols, and people would see them that way. And I did push it a little bit and put crucifixions in there and things like that, which does come with baggage, but it's baggage I wanted in there because I wanted people to think through these things, because sometimes it's good to take things from the real world and put them into fantasy, because the problem with fantasy, you can't call a German Shepherd a German Shepherd. You have to come up with a name that relays enough information that somebody will go, oh, I know what kind of dog that is. I do have magic, and you have the different races you can put in there and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that can be a cheat code if you want it to be, but that's not good writing. But it's like, sometimes it's good to take something that's in the real world, put it into fantasy so that people can bring that baggage with it. Because in Shroud of Whispers, this is the correct book, I have a character who has an opium addiction, and that comes with certain baggage. I could make up a type of drug or something like that, but people would, whatever, it's some made up thing. When you bring something with baggage, it gives you more to play with. It gives you some history that wouldn't be there otherwise.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's what's made books like Lord of the Rings, The Silmarillion, C.S. Lewis's writings so powerful and impactful across the generations, because they are bringing in those real world situations and those principles that not only matter the most, but are applicable right here and now, no matter where you are in life. So, I mean,
C.S.
I
Lewis is
personally appreciate
amazing.
that. He
Yeah.
is, isn't he?
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah, my husband and I have a series that we started and then paused, exploring mere Christianity. And right now I'm reading The Great Divorce. And the principles that are just explored by his writings and so many other wonderful Christian authors, those are what I like to interweave into my fiction works, because I feel there's no better place to talk about things that matter the most than in fiction writing.
Because you can, especially like in sci-fi and fantasy, you can take things and strip away some of the baggage and put it in front of people so that they can have less of a predetermined thought about it. But yeah, C.S. Lewis is amazing. I read Mere Christianity with a group of guys, and we still talk about that book, and it's been over a year. So it always comes up in conversation.
It is absolutely one of his best. He just succinctly pinpoints it right to the T, because there are these great authors that are very inspirational to us, and in some ways we kind of aspire to be like them. What are you hoping to get out of being an author for your own series?
In terms of like fame and fortune, I would love if everything paid for itself. I'm not looking to get famous. I'm not looking to get rich. I'm in the wrong business if I want to do that. I just want to write these stories that have been in my head, and some of these have been in my head for years. Other ones are newer. I just want to put them out there because I can't not do it. I mean, I've been writing for years. It's just in the last 2.5 that I've done the self-publishing. I tried to go the traditional route, but didn't really get much traction in that. And I decided to do the self-publishing just because I got to a point where it's like, Yeah, I could write another book, I could query it and then write another book and then query that, and I could keep going on that cycle, but I'm kind of running out of time. If I was 30, it's like, yeah, okay, I can do this. Let's do this. But it's like, I'm getting to the point where it's like, even if I got a book deal today, I mean, the book wouldn't be out for a couple of years. So it's like, I just got to the point where it's like, I'm just going to do this myself.
Yeah, that is absolutely sensible. I've met a couple authors who suffer from chronic and one a terminal illness, and it's like we don't have all the time in the world to just do everything that we want to do. And stories take so much time to put together, to edit, and then get them into the right audience's hands that really we don't have a lot of time to just wait around for some publisher to say, yes, I want your manuscript.
It's all gatekeeping. So which is good in some ways, but in other ways, it's like, how do you break through? Because knowing enough about art and music and all that kind of stuff, sometimes it's just dumb luck. Your right manuscript shows up on the right desk at the right time, and you couldn't have planned that. It's just you hit send at the right time or threw it in the mail at the right time. Can't guarantee luck. So that's kind of where I got to at the end. It's like, you know what? I can do this.
There's so much variety as to who does hit that luck. I mean, sometimes I go to Barnes and Nobles and I'll just, pick a random book off the shelf, just kind of flick through it to see how interesting it is. And it's amazing to me that you can find some books that are just, I won't say garbage, but they aren't really quality books. They don't have a lot in them aside from just brief entertainment that, I'll pay $30 for this book just to discard it the next day. And then you can find indie authors who have these incredible quality writing. And then, of course, it's also the same vice versa that traditional writing can have these incredible authors, and some indie authors are needing some work.
Yeah. Yeah. The big problem is right now we're in the market right when AI hit.
Mm.
So now you've got people who are doing the AI route because it's easy. It doesn't give you a quality product, but it's easy. And I get it. I started working on a new book in December. I'm about 11,000 words in because I'm doing other things too. That's not the only thing I've worked on this year. I might have a draft by the end of the year. If you don't have the patience or the passion or the hard work that you want to put into that, you'll lose interest. I used to play guitar in bands and stuff, and it's like people go like, more kids would play guitar if they had a really good instrument. It's like, no, you either click with it or you don't. It never is a matter of like, well, if I'd only had a $1,000 guitar and I only had a $200 guitar or a $20 guitar, and that's the only reason why I don't play. I mean, that's not what it is. You need passion, hard work, and talent on top of that. Those three things
Yeah.
kind of work together because you're gonna have to put a lot of hard work in. And on the days when the words just aren't coming, maybe you already have something out and it's not selling very well, you need to have that passion to keep you going. Because there are some days when it's just like, why am I doing this? I'm begging people to read and read my book or anything, and it's like, and there are other days where it's like, great, you get a nice comment from somebody, or you get us some sales or anything like that. If you're not willing to put in the hard work and you don't have the passion, and you don't have some talent, it's just you're gonna grind to a halt. AI gives you a way to skip over that, but it's not good. It's just copying.
I've met a couple authors that they swear by editing with AI, and my first two editors for my first book used AI to edit the book. The amount that they removed, I was absolutely astounded. It has taken me 5 months to correct all the stuff that they jacked up with that machine. And I've met quite a few indie authors that they do. They swear like editing is great with AI. Sometimes I just need a little more on the scene and I'll run it through AI and it'll finish it for me. And every time I've come across an author who has done that, you'll read through their book and you'll find that there's quite a few inconsistencies. The voice is just robotic, and a lot of things just are either unrelatable or inaccurate. And the person doesn't know because they haven't taken the time to actually double check and read over it. They haven't been using their own brain. And, it sounds good when you do the read out loud feature, so it must be okay, right? But it's really not.
I love working with my editor. I've had two different editors. My first editor retired and she helped me get the one I have now, but I love it because it's like they give you feedback that's usable and can push you to make a scene better, to push you to make a character better. Or, hey, here's an inconsistency. I mean, I had a scene in a book where I had a bunch of characters come together that weren't normally together, and I had a perfectly good reason for it. I had thought it out. There was something there that brought all these characters together, and forgot to put it on the page. And my editor's like, "Why are they all here?" Because I know why they're there, but it's nice
Yeah.
to have that person who's just like, "Hey, you put all these characters together. Why are they all together?" And then it's like, "Okay, yeah, I've got to do that." I am very, very pro editor, and have somebody who you can bounce ideas off of and work through things, because my editor is great. Sarah Letourneau, it's the heart of the story. Awesome person, great editor.
It is so important for us to have connections outside of ourselves from just doing things because we don't always see what we don't see. But, I'm laughing internally because my series follows a detective who goes into dreams to solve crimes. And sometimes I forget where she is in that dream because I'm so busy describing it. And I'll have my editors now, they'll turn around and they'll say, "Where is she?"
Yeah.
I'm like, she's right there. And they're like, "Yeah, but no, she's not. It's all in your head." I'm like, "What? How can you not see her?" "Yeah, her name is not mentioned for like 3 pages. Of course she's not there."
Thing my editor has pushed me to is write food scenes that are more in depth, because I don't care. She's like, "What are they eating? People want to know." Okay. Which is then
Yeah.
interesting, because then you start researching like, what interesting things could they be eating that's not like typical of what people see in either like fantasy or even on their own table.
Just little details. Some people are like, "Oh, I need to know how they look more. I need to know how they sound when they're saying this," or like the micro movements. And as authors, it's hard enough to get the whole story on the page, but now you want every little nitty-gritty picturesque detail, and it's like, whew.
I find like character descriptions, might as well not even put them in there. I do, you put them in there, but it's like, I know for my own reading, Dumbledore was always overweight, and he is specifically described as being rail thin. And to me, he was always just a chubby guy. Must be
Yeah.
in the name.
That's the thing of it is readers really create their own image. I mean, I was reading a book series by another indie author last month, and her main character in my head, she's this beautiful Black woman who's just sassy and tough and ready to go. And no, she's like blonde and skinny and just fickle. When I looked at the character art on the website, I was just shocked. I was like, no, that's not right.
That's not that character. I know what she looks like. Yeah, totally.
It's great as authors to have our vision of the character, but the reader really needs their own liberty to kind of put their own interpretation on it sometimes.
My youngest daughter actually is a really good artist, and she does portraits of my characters. So I put those up on my website and stuff like that. Though she didn't do anything for Cthoma's Faded. The other 2 books, she's done character art for them.
It's awesome. I'll have to check it out. So, world building. Talk me through your process of world building because you have mentioned it's something that's just absolutely important to you.
It depends on what it is, because there are things in the worlds that I create which are very detailed. I've got like the foundation, I've built the rooms, and you can go in and open up the cabinets and there's dishes in there, and there's other stuff that's like it's the equivalent of a grip holding up a picture of a building and hoping nobody tries to open up the door, because like sometimes you just kind of put an idea in there. In my series The Shores of the Deluge, there's a city that floats in the sky, and it's been in the world since I started developing it. Never spent any time there until I was working on the ending of Shroud of Whispers, and I went, you know what, there'd be some interaction with that city in this, or people from that city in this book. And I spent a week of just like, this is how they dress, this is their religion, this is, all these kinds of things. And like, they don't talk directly to people, they have other people talk for them, and then they wear the inverted colors. I mean, it just, those kinds of things will then just pop out of my head. Some stuff is more like taking civilizations that exist in our world and just tilt them, just change them a little bit, change certain aspects of it, like how they interact with different cultures and everything like that. I mean, don't just rip off something and just change. They're not Japanese, they're Japanese, nothing like that. But I mean, like, look at different architectures, look at different ways that civilizations set themselves up, and how they pick their leaders, or what they call their leaders, and you can get ideas to make your world even more realistic. Because as much as I love world building, and I'm only one person, I'm not the whole of the world, because everybody as a whole is way smarter than I'll ever be, because they've figured out things that I wouldn't even have thought of. It's like, so I'm always paying attention to, like, if a documentary comes on that's about some kind of ancient civilization, I'm watching it. If there's an article, if there's a book, I'm reading it because I want to know how other people organize themselves, because I can take inspiration from that and make it into my own kind of thing. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love doing that. The world of Aron, which is the shores of the deluge, the world's flooded with water. So it's like it totally changes how civilizations are set up, because they have very small pieces of land to live on, and some don't even have any land. So it's like, how do they survive? And my original idea was there would be no land, and then I realized even with magic you'd run out of resources within a generation or two because it's impossible. So I'm like, okay, I got to put islands in there. And then it's like I started building the islands one by one and then what kind of religion do they have? Who's in charge? Are they a theocracy? Are they a king, or whatever name you want to give the leader? How are these set up? Are there multiple civilizations or societies on the same island? And then how do they interact? And that just opens up Pandora's box of all sorts of ideas that you can just throw in there and play around with.
Does. Yeah, I love how you're just like talking through not only the things that you're framing them off of, but I can see your imagination just churning as you're talking about it. And to me, like that is the best part about being an author. But I've always said to those who ask me, like, what do you read? And I tell them nonfiction. I think nonfiction, like real life things, are the best inspiration for fiction. You have to really take from what is, what has been, or what is possible in order to incorporate those elements. And like kind of like yourself, like I rewrote the American justice system in my book series.
That's
And
awesome.
it took a lot of, I have a background that enabled me to do that. But the thing is, I didn't know where this story took place. I knew it was in America. So I wrote the entire book, and then my editor says, "Where is this?" And I was like, crap. I was so busy with all the other details of the world building that I totally spaced the actual specific state they were in. Yeah, so most of the readers, they'll get through the Lattice Scheme, and it's about, gosh, I want to say the 13th chapter when you're like, oh, Philadelphia, I see.
That's cool.
Yeah, just toss it in there. But there are so many details that we do need to consider, especially when creating a brand new world in fantasy. Things have to make sense enough that the person can grasp them, but it can't just be this copy paste thing. I can't just say, cell phones are not going to be called shell phones and we're going to have devices just like them and everything. Got to be a different way to communicate. There's got to be a different way to utilize, electricity if it's used at all. For myself in my series, because I do have a detective that enters the subconscious, I've had to learn a lot about subconscious phenomenon, gamma rays, electronics,
That's the
all
fun
sorts of
stuff.
things. It is, and it's utterly
When you open
thrilling.
up a box and you're like, oh, I got to learn more about this. Of course, computer at one time, my search browser kept saying, do you need help with drug addiction? No, I'm good.
There's a lot of crime fiction authors that I've talked to that they have had their internets flagged for the things that they research. I haven't had that experience, mostly because I'm very old fashioned in how I research. Like, I will go to the library, I will watch a whole bunch of documentaries, crime film noir, and whatnot before I turn to Google, but it's a problem.
Well, yeah, I had in this one city, there were canals in there. And I'm like, what's it like to live on a canal boat? And so I started researching, and I also live near the Erie Canal, so that helped a little bit too. But like they were like family businesses, and like families lived on these boats and then moved goods from, wherever the canal went to. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. It's like maybe a line or two in the book, but I spent quite a bit of time like, how do these canal boats work?
The detail really does matter. I don't know. I feel like authors are powerhouses of knowledge just because of how much research we do.
Anytime I hear something interesting, I'll like pick up my phone and put a note in there. And it's like, oh, that's a neat idea. Or that's cool. I like that.
When I first became an author, me and my husband would be sitting there just like watching a movie together on a weekend, and something would just strike me and I would get all excited. And he now knows that all he has to do is say author idea, and I'm up and I'm gone. I got to take a note or write something down. And he'll even like sometimes come up to me and say, I have an idea that I think you're going to think is golden. And he'll tell me, and I'm like, where are the sticky notes? Everywhere. I have so much that I just draw inspiration from and have to go back to. And it's about a 230-page Word document with all my running ideas and quotes on that I somehow am going to get into the series.
These are my note cards for books 5 and 6 of my series. Anytime I'm like, oh yeah, I want to put this scene in there, I'll throw it on that. Oh, I can bring this character back. And how old would they be?
Yeah, some authors, they have these intricate spreadsheets with everything, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's so organized. I don't know how you do that because I have to have sticky notes and files and notebooks and sometimes even sketchbooks.
My editor puts together this style guide. I don't even know how many pages it is, but it's like every character that shows up in the book, even if they're unnamed, she's got them listed, where they were in the book, what chapter, what name they went by. Like if it's a main character, they'll have like, these people call them this, these people call them that. And I'm just like, how? I can't do that. I wrote the book.
I don't know. Us authors, it is in our heads. We have all the details in our heads, these worlds, like you're saying, in our heads. It's hard to kind of articulate to just common people and regular readers that I don't need to have 1,000,001 spreadsheets to keep track of these things. It's me.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is cool though when somebody does pull it out and put it down. My editor did make me go back to my first book and make a character list of all the characters in it because I have over 46 characters in it, and apparently that's confusing for some people. So yeah, book 2 has 53. What can I say? That was painful though. It was trying to track them all down, and I already know them. I don't want to have to write them all individually.
I wouldn't know how to do it, to be honest. It blows my mind.
That's another reason we need other people, right?
Yes, exactly. Like the book that I've got coming out in September, which is has a political military thriller, and I got to the point where it's like I need to cut out some of these characters because it's just too many, and then it's like no, because there's so many different countries and groups that are being involved. If I cut one out, then it's like I'm not paying attention to that group, and I finally just gave up and said, okay, I'm just going to keep all these characters in here and we'll see what happens. You just have to
Yeah,
follow the two main characters and see how they react. And you can go from
the
there.
thing about it when it comes to characters, I've heard this argument a lot on Instagram. Irritates me. They say, I won't read your book if you have more than 10 characters. And in my head, I'm like, hold up now. How many TV series and movies have you watched in your life? You can name every single character, you know all about them, but you can't do that for a book. Humans are not stupid, we can grasp many people at once. I mean, even in elementary, how many people do you know when you start first grade, second grade, third grade? Over 100. It's easy stuff. To me, it's completely realistic to have 52 characters, knowing that 90% of them are side characters that you'll never see again.
That's what I found interesting. Those are the moments that I love is like you introduce a character in chapter, 2, 3, 4, 5. Who's just a minor character. And you're like, oh, I'll give him this quirk or this connection to the main character. And then you get farther in the story and like, oh, I can use that character again because they would be there or they would know the character and then you get these connections. Those are the moments I love.
Yeah, it interweaves and it's fantastic, but it could never happen if you didn't make the character.
10 characters, that would be hard. That feels like a bottle episode of TV or something.
Yeah, that's like a children's story.
10 people in a boat.
Now somebody's got to write that. Whoever's watching this will make that book.
I
But
get
it
an
is
acknowledgement in the book though if they do.
exactly. We got to get our names on as many things as possible. So speaking of characters, do you have a favorite character out of all the books that you've written?
Yeah. Speaking of characters that walk in out of nowhere, I had a moment where in Shroud of Whispers, a character, they needed help from somebody who had some power, but they couldn't be too powerful. And this character, her name is Bidge Tenbloom, walked onto the page and I'm like, I need to write an encyclopedia about this woman because she's awesome. And then I immediately I was fascinated with her and I put her in the next book. I actually had that book written and I added her in. I loved her so much. And I've added her into the series going forward.
That's fantastic. An encyclopedia.
I want to know where she's born, who her parents are, where she was raised, everything about this character.
It's funny because readers would think that, as an author, your favorite character must be the main character, but I found across the board it's usually not the case. Like for me, it's the very, very minor characters that I absolutely love and adore. And when something terrible happens to them, I am absolutely torn apart. I was actually, spoiler alert for anybody out there who pre-orders the Palsy Web, I was so enamored by this one character that ends up dying pretty quickly in the second book that I actually started a side novella just to do a little bit of justice to his widow.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, so and that book will be coming out not next month, but probably the following month, and it's a diabolical rom-com, but it's, I can't live with myself knowing that he had to die.
I also had the opposite, where I had a character that was annoying me so much I killed them. I don't like
Gotta
this
do it.
character anymore. And I wrote the scene, killed him off, was so happy to be rid of them, and then wrote like a chapter or two more and went, oh, I need them for the end of the book. Had to put them back in. But I'm hoping if they annoy me, they'll annoy the reader, and that's what I wanted out of that character. So
We do need those characters. It's I told somebody this the other day, but we all need the Dolores Umbridge of our series. There's got to be that one person that everybody hates.
She is my favorite villain of all time.
No way.
My goodness, I hated her with such a passion. I mean, there are better bad guys in the world, but my goodness, I wanted that character to die so bad. I was just talking about her with my wife the other day. I'm like, what a great villain.
She is, though. She's absolutely everything that's terrible, and she's not even the main bad guy. I mean,
No, she's
Voldemort
not.
is scary, but she's the one.
Voldemort, he's whatever. We'll take care of him later. Let's get her first.
Honestly, I have a couple Dolores Umbridges in my series, and I don't know where to go with the final bad guy because they're just so, I want to strangle them so bad, but they gotta stay. What is the craziest thing you've either looked up or done for book research?
What's the most efficient way to kill somebody with a dagger? And I
What is it?
don't know because no one would tell me. I had a friend who messaged me and told me, this, if you want to kill somebody with a dagger effectively, this is how you do it. But yeah, that's the one search on the internet that probably would got me in trouble.
Most efficient way.
Somebody in some office is going, what's this Jeff guy doing?
Don't flag
I
him.
need to keep an eye on him.
I guess the weirdest thing I've ever done is I got a job for 3 weeks as a life insurance agent because I needed to do some mafia type research, and that was the closest thing I had in Missouri. Yeah, really, they are just like the mafia. They're crazy. It's like high school on steroids, but you're like, everybody has to be in, and if you leave, they will hunt you down worse than like AT&T salespeople.
I won't tell them where you are.
I literally moved from Wyoming to Missouri, so not for that reason, of course, but
Yeah.
we'll see if they come around.
Look for strange vans.
Look for strange bands. Oh, yes, absolutely. I guess turning back to your book, because it does have a lot of that religious imagery, and there's this emperor, this system that you have that he's punishing all the people. I'm just kind of curious what the archetypal storytelling structures were drawn from in that, especially like there's even a comet involved.
In my head, the emperor is in charge of basically North Korea. So that's how I pictured it. I read a really cool book a couple of years ago. It was a guy who wrote a story wrote the story of the second leader, North Korea, from his point of view. And it's one of those things where you're like, when you get to the end, you realize just how evil the guy was. And he thought he was doing all these great things and being so wonderful. But it's like when you actually read between the lines, and that's what made it great, you're like, that's just awful. So that was kind of that's where I started. And then like the prophecy, I did write it, never put it in the book because I didn't like the way that it came out. My editor at the time, Sarah Litchfield, she kept pushing me like, what's the prophecy? Can you put it in the book? I'm like, no, I'm not putting it in the book because I like it better that it's just talked about. I think that's more interesting than if I'd put it in the book. I had an idea of how it would read and how it was misinterpreted. Because once you get to the end, you'll kind of realize that what was misinterpreted through the whole thing. And as I was kind of writing that, it was like, I think it's better this is just kind of talked about. And then, I think that's more interesting for the reader. Puts that little bit of mystery in there and all that. And then just how awful a dictator can be was where I kind of went with that, as far as looking at the emperor, because although it's kind of like a medieval sword sorcery kind of world, they have magic, so it allows them to do things that a medieval society couldn't do. And I kind of found that interesting, of the idea of like, if we never had magic, we would never be able to do all these horrible things. But it's like, because you're not thinking of technology where we can nuke the whole world 10, 100 times over and be just as bad or worse than what these magic things can do. And that's what I found interesting of playing with those kind of aspects.
Awesome. Yeah. I also got what you're saying about you can't always put things in. There does have to be mystery. People need to be piecing things together for themselves and trying to determine things for themselves. I've actually taken out full dialogues that the main character will just hear little bits of. And I want to give it to the reader, but I can't because you got to just not know. We need to be uncomfortable with not knowing.
Have you ever written like a partial dialogue that the main character hears and then forget what the other part of the dialogue was? Because I've done that.
Thankfully not, because I do write out the full dialogue and I keep it on a separate document.
I
And then
should start doing that.
later I have to know the connection when that character
Yeah.
is referencing it to themselves again, just to kind of refresh myself. Yeah, what was that deal you were making?
Because I've done that where of like that partial dialogue piece, and I'm like, okay, probably when I was writing it, I knew exactly what they said, but I didn't put it on the page. And then, we go back months later and it's like, what were they talking about? What
Yeah.
detail?
And I mean, that's what you want the reader to do, but not the author. For your book series, either Cthoma or any of the other ones, what is it that you want your readers to draw out of your books?
Themes of the different books. This one, Shroud of Whispers, is really about sacrifice. It's about what are you willing to do for others. The one that's coming out, Steadfast as Stone, is really about leadership. What does good leadership look like? Because it's not always, teddy bears and Hershey kisses. Sometimes it's you have to be brutal because like there is a decision made in the book at one point that if the brutal decision was made would have saved thousands of lives at the cost of one. Was that worth it? And that's the kind of stuff I want people to think about when they're reading Steadfast as Stone. And then Cthoma's Faded is all about redemption and forgiveness, and it's never too late to do the right thing.
So those are powerful narratives, all based with hard decisions that have to be made, whether within you or towards others around you, towards the way that you see the world, impacting others' lives as well. Everything that we do inside and out does have that impact. Yeah, those are powerful things to think about. For indie authors, aspiring indie authors specifically, what would be your biggest piece of advice?
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. I'm sorry. I hate to say it because it was a hard lesson for me. I thought when I released Cthoma's Faded, I'm like, I wrote a book. That's cool. Nobody cares. You have to make them care. You have to put in the legwork. And even traditionally published authors, no one's going like, there's not like a department going like, we need to put this book in every bookstore. You've got to go to those bookstores. You've got to go and, talk to other people and have the social media and all that kind of stuff. There's like a real small percentage of people that actually finish a book. But when you put that up against how many people there are in the world, it's actually a lot of books. What is it? Hachette put out 3,000 books in a quarter, and that's only one of the big five. So if we just take that number and put it across the big five, that's 15,000 books in a quarter. No one's reading all those. You're lucky to get 100 books sold. You're lucky to then go to the next level, which is the 1,000 books, and then even a smaller percentage put that other zero and get 10,000. It's all hard work. Writing is a joy. Editing is a joy. World building's a joy. All that stuff's a joy. Promotion, if it's not a joy, it's work. And I find it's work. I wish it was a joy because I've seen people who can do it. There are indie authors out there doing great because they're really good at self-promotion. I'm terrible at it. I'm lucky to get any kind of interest, it's like, but you got to do it. That's the only way. No one's going to trip over your book and pick it up and read it. It's got to be put in front of them. There's other people who have to say, oh, I've read this. It's good. I mean, you got to think about what makes you pick up a book. The cover is the initial. It's like, oh, that's a pretty cover or that's a cool cover. And then you turn it over and you read the blurb and it's like, yeah, I like this idea, or I'm not really into this kind of book, but oh, that's interesting, whatever. And you put it away. You have to think of all these things. You have to put a nice cover on your book. You've got to go to good blurb on the back that doesn't lie to the reader. I've read a blurb. Well, I read the book. I can't remember what it was years ago, but they said in it, like, these three women have an effect on his life. The third woman comes in the last 10% of the book. Why is she on the blurb?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. You need to grab them to know what the beginning of the book is. And enough information is like, yeah, this is what I want to read. Yeah, I like mysteries. This is a mystery. I'm going to pick this up. or the concept is really interesting. Like I read a book about Havoc. Christopher Bolin, I think, is the author. And it's a story of a psychopath and a sociopath coming across each other and hating each other. And I'm like, that's interesting. I want to read that. Because like the one's an 80-year-old woman, the other one's an 8-year-old kid. And that's just, I wish I
Yeah,
came up with that idea.
right? Some books we are.
I read that book, and at the end, I'm like, that's the craziest ending I've ever read. And I read fantasy most of the time.
Mm,
And this one's just in Cairo.
with mystery and thriller in Cairo. That's great. I completely agree though. Yeah, that is the reality is no one cares. And it's hard. It's hard to swallow that pill. For myself, I found it's actually a very good journey because having that Christian mindset, it's really relevant to all things in life. We know that we are nothing. Man is nothing. God is everything. When you start to understand that being nothing, that nobody cares, is actually empowering, that's all the more reason to do it. It's about what we become in the process, not what is brought to you. And that kind of feeling of having your mind expand while you're writing these characters, these worlds, the amount of knowledge that you're bringing in, the skills that you're learning, nothing can possibly compare to that. So, yeah, nobody cares, but you care. And when you care and you have a passion for these things, that is the fire. And that's why it's worth it.
I agree with that 100%. But it's like, if you don't understand that going in, just because you released a book doesn't mean that 1,000 people are going to pick it up. Great if it does. Maybe you hit the zeitgeist just perfectly. Not everybody's going to do that. If I didn't find such joy in writing and creating these stories, if I never released another thing, I'd still be getting up on Monday morning and writing, because that's what I do Monday through Friday. I get up in the morning, work out, eat breakfast, sit down and start writing until I have to go to work, and then do that, rinse and repeat 5 days a week. That's actually one piece of good advice I had was, I don't even know who the author was. It was years ago. He was on some talk show, late night talk show. And he said he wrote 5 days a week and then had a weekend. And his weekend was Friday and Saturday. And I think that's really good. Write 5 days a week so that you get into that habit and then take a break from it, walk away. Some Saturday, I usually take Saturday and Sunday off, but Saturday, sometimes I do like promo stuff. Like I'll work on like emails I'm going to send out or think through those kinds of things or, do that kind of stuff. But it's like Monday through Friday, I'm writing. And if you're not
Yeah.
doing that, if that doesn't bring any joy, then find something else to do.
It's a lifestyle thing, It's just like eating and fitness. It's what you do and you can't do it 24/7. None of us do the same thing 24/7, but we do keep engaged with the things that matter most and make us who we are. So if you really are an author, this is what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you have to put a note, write a note down on your little paper or put it in your phone when you're watching TV or somewhere where, you can't sit down and write, you do that. 'Cause I've got notes in my phone that are like, I'll be scrolling through. I'm like, when did I write that? That's a cool idea. I'll have to put that in something someday.
My pinned email list is longer than my to be read pile, so I literally have an email just dedicated to book ideas. Somebody can steal that idea if they want. It works better than a spreadsheet for me. Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today.
It's been over an hour, so I get why words are hard.
Yeah, it's really, I do. I speak 3 languages, so I get tongue-tied a lot.
I speak barely one, so.
English is the hardest, not gonna lie. So for everybody watching this episode, be sure to check out the description. I'm going to have all of Jeffrey's books in the description, his website, his Instagram. You can follow him. I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you check out his book, Cthoma's Faded. For me, it's been fun reading it. I'm looking forward to finishing it and leaving a review.
Oh,
But
thank
again,
you.
Jeffrey, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Everyone
you.
else, please subscribe, hit like so that we can keep supporting indie authors.